Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi. This stupid thing, I thought I had it fixed and I don't because I'm a dummy. So doing Legendary Capital, did it already. I'm doing it again. You know, when I played the Division 2, I ended up loving doing the Legendaries. It's in general the average toughest content that you can do. But I also want to talk to you today about duty. So what's duty all about? You're in the military, at least the U.S. military, you take an oath or pledge the Constitution that you're going to defend it. Wow, I really saturated the colors on this one. Sorry, YouTube. And you end up going to boot camp. So what happens is you go to used to be called a MEPS center that you would go to get indoctrinated. Then for me at least, you go to Cape May, so you fly into Philadelphia, and then it's a long-ass bus ride to Cape May, New Jersey, where you start boot camp. And when you're in the recruiter's office, you pledge, that's when you do the oath, when you're signing in, you kind of sign a contract. You're a young kid, so you don't really realize what it means. And when you're older, you realize what it means more, the solemnness of that time where you're making an oath and a pledge. And then in theory, you're supposed to do your duty. When you think of the context of the Division 2, you're a sleeper agent for the U.S. government when shit hits the fan, and then you come out and your duty is to, I don't know if you're to keep the government together, to put the best government in the place. I don't know what it is. I've watched all the stories. I played both games. I'm not sure what you're supposed to be doing. I don't know. It's dubious at best. Whether it's one of these Jedi stories where you think that they're the good guys. Maybe we're not the good guys. Maybe we're really bad guys that are smoking all these people. I don't know. I don't know what the intention is. It feels like you're the good guy. But you have a duty to do. And so that's the idea. And that's the whole premise of people going rogue, is they violate that duty. Why do I bring all this up? Today I went to a memorial for a veteran. And there's a lot of veterans that have paid the ultimate sacrifice, that have, in all countries, people have had veterans that lay down their lives for their country. Sometimes maybe you don't agree with the reasons why you were there, but the good thing, the bad thing when you're in the military and you take an oath and you are doing your duty, you might get in places that you didn't expect. Everyone, of course, when 9/11 happened in the United States, I was in the military. I had been in the Coast Guard about, 3 or 4 years. And I was at a small boat station in the Midwest, and I wanted to go serve. I wanted to go to Iraq really bad. Now, even then, even though I didn't know then what I know today about the whole reason, I just wanted to serve for the country. My senior chief wouldn't let me go. And there was a change in the United States military. Their response is, for a long time, you would join the Reserve or National Guard. You just would drill on the weekend and you get your money for college and whatever. And that was one of the first times that they mobilized all those reservists. So even in the Coast Guard, they sent our reserves, but not the active duty. And I was mad at my boss. I was so mad. And I'm glad he didn't let me go. But I was ready to do my duty. So I was at a memorial today for a veteran. And in the county I'm in, the veterans have their own volunteer honor guard. And so that veteran happened to be a member of the honor guard. And they all came out and paid tribute. And it's a solemn thing, and it's a thing about duty. I also recently found out that There's a lot of public officials in my town that may or may not be doing their duty all the time. And so in the movies, they make it one big event that, you know, because you have 90 minutes in a movie that you got to make your point where Anakin, well, I would say that's probably one of the better expositions of someone losing their way in the world. And that's more how it happens. Okay, so maybe that was 6 hours instead of 1 hour or hour and a half. But in your life, it's small little bits. It's leaving early here. It's doing a thing here. It's doing a thing here. Making exceptions, taking shortcuts. Until if you never check yourself, you find yourself on the wrong side of your duty. Do you have to stay with that? No, but a lot of people just don't come back from that. They're in for a penny, in for a pound. They just keep going. So was that person ever for their duty? Were they ever, those are really tough questions that I can't sit here. I don't think anyone can sit in judgment of other people on that stuff. That's just something goes back to you. Talked about self in the last video. That's something that you have to deal with. And maybe this is Dudley do right in me, but I don't think it's ever too late to do the right thing. And I'd also agree we don't always know what the right thing is. I'm not omnipotent. And that's Roxy. That's where you're never going to really know until you're tested, until you're called about how to do your duty. Keep your oath. This is normally when I ask you to like, share, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, hit the notification bell. Appreciate everyone that's helping to grow the channel. Probably this weekend I'll work on doing my review on my new laptop. And it'll probably have a lot of the themes that we've talked about. I'm not going to sit there and moralize about laptops, but what I probably will do is frame what I bought the laptop for, what I want my computers to do. Just a quick aside, I built a desktop and that was my main computer, and slowly, as I've always wanted to do video editing. I don't know why. I didn't do it for a long time. I really started it in the end of October. I've done over like 330 videos, and I really found that the Apple ecosystem is the best. I never was a big fan of Apple. I had an iPhone, one of the, first generations, not the first iPhone, but, I wanted a smartphone. The Androids weren't that great, but it was just too restrictive. And Apple has a really closed ecosystem. But the apps you get that are built in are fantastic, and using LumaFusion to make movies is really easy, and it was dirt cheap when I bought it. But the plan is to do a review on my laptop, kind of understand what my setup is, and you may or may not, if you're interested in those kind of setups, that may be interesting to you. If not, it's just another point of view, way to look at electronics and those things. Anyways, getting back to your duty and you. So those are really tough questions. That's a really hard place where I think philosophy fails, because philosophy is, I've told you this thing about a bandwidth where at the top end, philosophy, I think, covers a big blanket, an overarching view of framework, how to live the world. And at the end is just on the other side of that continuum is what's personally to you. So that's maybe like Plato's absolute, that there's a form of a chair outside. It's the perfect form of all chairs. And then there's maybe John Stuart Mill's, who's like The only reality is what you observe. And so somewhere in that continuum, I'm always arguing that that's the place that you got to live. It's the hardest place to live. You know, if you think of a mountaintop, a pointy mountaintop, and if you think of happiness as, you know, you're never going to be able to stand that top. You strive for happiness, you start getting happier, you get to that point, and then you fall off. And then it's a battle to come back up the other side of the hill. And I think that's, if you look at it that way, that's a vertical way to look at it. If you look at horizontal, instead of going up to the top of a chart or the bottom of the chart, you try to stay in the middle, you know, and you're always progressing, let's say. And getting back to duty, where you lose your way, it's really incrementally where you lose your way. Being in the Coast Guard, I saw this time and time again where people would go down a path and you're like, man, if you make that choice, you're gonna end up in a bad spot. And it was hard for me to watch people self-destruct like that. And they just did. And I would try to help them or talk to them or whatever. And then what I realized a long time ago, that's everyone's journey. I've told you about my situation with my dad when I was a teenager. That's was my journey. That colored my life. Just like everyone's own experience colored their life. So really, you got to fit all this in the framework. But I'm against everything. That's a very American thing, that everything's relative. Well, to me, it could be this. I think that in science, in the science that I believe in, it isn't just that. Red, or what we call red, is a certain frequency. And colors that we would consider red are of a certain frequency that's not the frequency that is green. And I'm not talking about red and green, the words. I'm just talking whatever we call red over here, whether you call it green, but it's that frequency. We have decided that certain things have certain characteristics. No matter what you call them, whatever red, green, rouge, whatever you want to call it, that set of frequencies is a certain light that is always seen in the same way. It might have a different description. And so this is one of those kind of holes you go into when you're arguing with people, and that's just an argumentative technique to just kind of wear someone out. And I try to always give you these tools. And I'm probably, this is really not a universal analogy, but if you think about it, let's say you're slap boxing. They slap you, you slap them. They slap you, you slap them. If they don't have anything left, you slap them, you slap them, you slap them, you slap them. So you got to be able to go, like I'd say, at least 7 iterations with someone. Most people won't go 7 times with an exchange like that. Most people are too lazy or don't have the horsepower in their head to do those kind of things. So what does that get you? Because sometimes people want to derail the argument. If someone wants to derail the argument that much, you should pull out of the argument, because you're never going to convince them. They don't even want to hear what you're saying. They're just trying to, stonewall you on those things. Not worth your time. So duty is a very individual thing. But I had a chance to honor this person, and a bunch of their colleagues honored them. And it was a solemn moment. And having served in the military, it's just one of those things that brought back thinking about my oath. I remember I was sitting in Cincinnati at the recruiter's office, Coast Guard recruiter. It was, I think, a MKC Smith, I think was his name. My mom would always call him up when I was in boot camp and ask him questions. But I remember sitting in that recruiter's office taking that oath. And I remember hard trying to keep my word and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it worked out good. The military was good. It just harnessed all that raw potential. But YouTube, that's a little bit on duty today. We beat this legendary. I've been lucky to be in good groups lately. So thank you, YouTube. Talk to you soon. Ronan Kazi out.